The boardrooms of Spencer Publications and Forrester Creations were locked in a merciless duel, each side maneuvering for advantage in a war of power and pride. When the unthinkable happened, Kelly Spencer and Hayes Forrester, Finnegan vanished without a trace. Steffi Forrester, newly emboldened by her sacrifice to save Liam's life, had been consumed by the delicate negotiations to restructure the Spencer-Forrester alliance, drafting agreements that would honor Liam's revival and her own place at his side. Hope Logan, poised to protect her son's inheritance at Spencer, marshaled every legal salvo against Bill Spencer's relentless demands. Rich Forrester, seething over the boardroom slight, prepped a counterstrike to wrest design supremacy from Forrester Creations. Finn, Steffi's steadfast partner, balanced bedside care for Liam with counsel on every corporate term sheet. Yet in the shadow of these titanic conflicts, an anonymous threat, patient and cruel, slipped through the cracks. It began with an encrypted video sent simultaneously to Steffi's phone and Liam's hospital room tablet. Two small faces, Kelly's curls brushing her shoulders, Hayes clutching his favorite stuffed lion, eyes wide with confusion and fear. The stranger's distorted voice demanded that Steffi renounce every penny of her Spencer-Forrester inheritance, every board seat, every corporate vote, every dollar in trust, before midnight or the children would suffer. The deadline blinked like a heartbeat on the screen. No law enforcement had been alerted. The caller insisted that any deviation would be met with irrevocable violence. Panic slammed into Steffi's chest, but Finn's calm hand on her back grounded her as they watched the looped footage over and again. Hope arrived beside them, face ashen, instincts ignited. "We can't go to the police," she whispered. "They'll kill the kids." Steffi's eyes blazed. "Then I give them everything." But Finn shook his head. Liam was still incapacitated. Steffi's signature on corporate documents would unravel the new trust, drowning Liam's hard-won resurgence in legal chaos. They needed another plan. Meanwhile, Liam lay in his recovery suite, tenuously balancing on the razor edge of consciousness. His once steady hands now trembled when he reached for a glass of water. His thoughts sometimes lagged, words slipping away before he could grasp them. Yet when Steffi burst in, tears streaking her cheeks as she replayed the kidnapping video, something primal awakened within him, the hero who had once charged headlong into danger for the woman he loved. He sat up, every monitor alarmed at the sudden rush to his weakened heart. "Tell me," he rasped, voice raw. Steffi knelt beside him, cradling his hand. "Our children are gone. They've been taken. They want my inheritance, your life's work, or they die." Liam's jaw clenched. Memories of their dark hours in ICU, of Steffi's selfless gift, of his promise to protect her at all costs, flared into a fierce determination. "Show me," he said. With Hope's help, they replayed the footage, zooming on the nondescript warehouse backdrop. Liam's vision flickered, but his mind raced. He spotted a rusted metal door, a crumbling brick mortar pattern he'd seen near the docks. It was a thin lead, but enough for Carter Walton to start triangulating the location. By dusk, Finn and Carter had converged on the Los Angeles harborside, scanning abandoned piers and vacant shipping warehouses beneath a cloud-choked sky. Steffi, torn between her corporate obligations and maternal terror, stayed behind to stall. She signed a phony renunciation letter prepared by Hope, an elaborate ruse to buy time, and faxed it to an untraceable number. As the fax tone droned, she paced the marble floors of Spencer Publications, each tick of the clock echoing her dread. Meanwhile, Liam insisted on joining the rescue, refusing sedatives meant to calm his battered nerves. His resolve was a cloak stronger than any medication. Steffi watched him slip on a borrowed leather jacket, every thread a testament to his will to save their children. Finn begged him to rest, but Liam's eyes burned with the urgency of a man who could not risk waiting. "I owe them a chance," he said softly. "Just like you gave me." Steffi's heart shattered as she embraced him, knowing that each step he took away from her was a step toward danger, but also salvation. At Pier 37, under the flicker of a broken street lamp, Carter's voice crackled in Liam's earpiece. "It's here. 2 guards at the entrance." And his breath caught Steffi. "They've moved the kids inside that shipping container. It's locked, sealed." Liam's pulse hammered so fiercely Finn felt it through the radio. He signaled Carter to stay back. Drawing on every ounce of regained strength, Liam stalked forward, adrenaline sharpening his fractured cognition into laser focus. The guards spotted him and raised weapons. His response was instantaneous. He drew a concealed sidearm, each movement a gamble on muscle memory, and fired, the shot echoing against the steel-clad hull. One guard dropped where he stood, the other dove for cover. Liam sprinted past the fallen man, his voice cracking as he shouted, "Where are they?" Inside, Kelly and Hayes huddled beneath a stack of crates, eyes brimming with tears as the container rattled. Liam's return shot cleaved the lock with a controlled blast, and the doors swung open, revealing the children's small, frightened faces. He scooped them into his arms, tears streaming down his own cheeks, his strength pouring into every desperate hug. "I've got you. I've got you," he murmured, voice raw with relief. Outside, the kidnapper emerged. A tall, lean figure in a hooded jacket, gun trained on Steffi's trembling form as she ran toward the open container. "Stop," the stranger barked. Steffi froze, her legs weak beneath her. But Liam, holding Kelly under one arm and Hayes under the other, stepped between them, his silhouette framed by the orange glow of a distant crane light. "Let her go," he demanded, voice steely. The kidnapper's eyes gleamed with rage and something darker, bitter jealousy, a twisted sense of vengeance. "She reneged," he spat. "She lied. Now the inheritance is mine." Liam's gaze darted to the duffel bag slung at the stranger's side, stuffed with documents and cash, proof of the ruse. "You used them to bribe guards, to buy time," Liam snarled. "But you failed to see one thing. I'm not the man you left in a coma." With that, he raised his weapon, every muscle tensed, every breath a vow. The stranger flinched, lowering his gun as realization dawned. Liam's hands were steady now, his aim unwavering. In that crystallized moment, the world held its breath. 2 men, 2 guns, 2 destinies converging in a flash of steel will. Then the stranger bolted, vanishing into the labyrinth of rusted cranes and stacked containers, leaving Steffi and the children cradled in Liam's victorious arms. As sirens wailed on the distant horizon, Finn and Carter rushed forward, Finn sweeping Steffi into his embrace, while Carter cupped Hayes' chin to calm his sobs. Kelly, wrapped in Liam's jacket, pressed her face to his chest, her small hand tracing the scars on his forearm. Steffi reached for Liam's face, her fingers trembling as she brushed the sweat and grime from his brow. "You saved them," she whispered, voice thick with awe and relief. Liam closed his eyes, exhaustion and triumph mingling in his features. "I saved us," he corrected, voice husky. In the shadow of twisted steel and echoing alarms, the fractured family found itself whole once more. But amidst the tearful reunions and urgent calls to authorities, one truth shimmered. Nothing in their world would ever be the same. Spencer and Forrester might resume their corporate battles, bills would be drafted, board seats reallocated, alliances reforged, but no paperwork could ever capture the price paid, the courage summoned, or the bond reforged in the crucible of terror. That night, As helicopters circled above and flashing lights painted the harbor crimson and blue, Steffi and Liam stood with Kelly and Hayes nestled between them, the four of them a fortress against the world's chaos. In the aftermath of fear and fury, they discovered that even as enemies warred over legacy, the fiercest inheritance they held was each other, and no power on earth could ever steal that again. Ridge stood on the veranda of the Forrester estate at twilight, amber sky reflected in his eyes as he reached for Taylor's hand, the promise in his voice steady and true. He loved her, only her, more fiercely than he ever imagined possible. Taylor's heart had fluttered at his words, her chest swelling with relief after months of doubt. But beneath the warm glow of that confession lay an undercurrent neither dared acknowledge. Brooke. Ridge's mind, haunted by memories of her laughter echoing through the grand halls of Forrester Creations and the soft curve of her smile that had once rewritten the very definition of love for him, still flickered with ghosts of the past. Taylor, sensing the tension in his gaze as it drifted toward the rose garden where Ridge had first courted Brooke, squeezed his hand, grounding him in the present, in the love they had fought so hard to protect. Yet Ridge, torn between the steadfast devotion of Taylor and the irrevocable imprint Brooke had left on his soul, could not fully unburden himself. Every beat of his heart seemed to straddle two worlds. Inside the mansion's soaring atrium, Brooke arranged a late-night cup of tea for Eric and Quinn, ostensibly to discuss a new couture collaboration, but her mind raced with a more personal calculation. She had returned to Los Angeles not merely as the First Lady of Forrester, but as the living embodiment of Ridge's most passionate, reckless years. She had watched from a distance as Ridge and Taylor's fragile union had blossomed, rejoiced at their happiness, and bided her time. The moment Taylor and Ridge's public vows had quieted, Brooke had dispatched Carter to gin up a board-level invitation for her to consult on a retro collection inspired by her own classic style. Ridiculously, they'd agreed, tempted by ratings and nostalgia, and now Brooke would have Ridge in her orbit once more. Taylor, meanwhile, replayed Ridge's confession over and over, clinging to the warmth in his eyes but feeling a tremor of doubt. The echo of Ridge's hesitation when he spoke of Brooke weighed heavily, a pause too pregnant with feeling, a breath held too long. She told herself it was normal, that recovering from a love as epic as theirs required time. And yet every time her phone buzzed with a text from Brooke, every time she heard Ridge's name whispered on the factory floor, Taylor's heart clenched with a fear she refused to face. She busied herself drafting the script for a medical documentary she would host for Spencer Publications, even as her mind drifted to Ridge's call earlier that day. He'd asked if she'd join him at the gala celebrating the new Forrester Logan partnership. She said yes, setting the stage for a night that would test their bond. The gala glittered beneath crystal chandeliers, a swirl of champagne flutes and designer gowns as Forrester and Spencer elites mingled on the polished marble. Ridge arrived hand in hand with Taylor, their entrance announced by a hush of admiration, until Brooke stepped into the foyer, clad in a slinky, emerald green gown that caught the light with every step. Conversations faltered, glasses paused midway to lips, and Taylor felt a contraction of breath as Ridge's stride faltered for the briefest moment. Brooke offered her most dazzling smile, the one that once ignited Ridge's world, then paused before approaching, a single red rose in hand. Its petals flushed the color of desire and danger. "Mind if I join you?" Brooke asked, voice soft yet charged. Ridge swallowed, clearing his throat, and began to introduce his wife. Taylor lifted a polite smile, but her fingers curled around Ridge's palm, an unspoken claim that sent a flicker of guilt across his face. Brooke extended the rose to Taylor with a deliberate flourish, her eyes never leaving Ridge's. "For your husband," she said, and Taylor forced a laugh, her skin prickling. Ridge accepted the rose from Brooke's hand, brushing a strand of Brooke's hair from her face as he did so, an innocuous gesture, yet it stoked the embers of Taylor's jealousy into a flare. They drifted through the crowd as Brooke intercepted Ridge by the fountain, where night-blooming jasmine perfumed the air. Taylor watched, heart pounding, as Ridge and Brooke exchanged a few low words, her gaze fixed on the curve of Ridge's jaw, the way light danced in his eyes as he smiled at something Brooke said. That smile, once reserved for Taylor's ears only, slashed through her like a blade. When Brooke finally crossed the room to greet Taylor, she feigned warmth, her tone honeyed. "Taylor, it's been too long. You look radiant tonight." Taylor managed a tight smile as Brooke's words wrapped around her like a silk noose. "Thank you, Brooke." Brooke arched an eyebrow. "And Ridge, you two look perfect together." At that, Ridge stepped forward, drawing Taylor close in a protective gesture, yet Taylor felt the tremor in his arm, the retention of distance that told her everything. The evening stretched on, punctuated by laughter that sounded brittle in Taylor's ears and toasts that felt like challenges. Ridge tried to meet Taylor's eyes across the table during dinner, his expression apologetic, but each time Taylor saw him glance toward the entrance, where Brooke lingered in conversation with Steffi and Hope, a tendril of suspicion curled within her. Later, Ridge found Taylor alone on the balcony, the city lights a sea of stars below. He closed the door behind him, stepping into the warmth of her embrace. "Taylor, I'm sorry," he whispered, pressing his lips to her temple. "Brooke, she's just here for business." Taylor pulled back, searching his face. "Then why does she still have this power over you?" Ridge hesitated, his eyes dark with conflict. "Because she's been part of my life for so long." "Because," he exhaled sharply. "Because I don't want to hurt you." Taylor's tears came then, soft and furious. "But you are hurting me," she said, voice small yet fierce. "Every look you give her, every moment you spend entertaining her closeness, it rips me apart." Ridge took her hands in his, the weight of his love and his guilt heavy between them. "I choose you," he said. "I love you, Taylor. I promise you that." She nodded, pressing her forehead to his, but as they clung to each other, both felt the tremor of uncertainty linger. Across town, Brooke stood before a mirror in her penthouse suite, the green gown slipping from her shoulders as she dialed Quinn on her phone. "Operation Reclaim Ridge is in motion," she purred. "He's vulnerable. Taylor's jealousy is an open wound. All I need is a spark." Quinn laughed softly. "Count me in." The two women toasted to the scheming future as the city skyline shimmered behind them, oblivious to the turmoil set to erupt. Over the next days, Ridge's world spun between board meetings with Bill Spencer, charity events with Taylor, and clandestine strategy sessions with Brooke, who floated the idea of a capsule collection celebrating Ridge's signature aesthetic, something he'd never had the space to explore under Taylor's cautious eye. Taylor learned of this collaboration through a press release she stumbled upon while drafting her next segment. The betrayal she felt cut deeper than any previous wound. She confronted Ridge at the office, her voice echoing in the glass-paneled hallway. "You promised me there'd be no secret projects with her." Ridge's face paled. I told her I'd consider it. It's nothing, Taylor." Taylor's laugh was brittle. "Nothing? You're giving her access to your designs, your name, your legacy." Ridge's shoulders sagged. "I thought I could integrate her ideas, honor our history. I didn't think it would hurt you." Taylor's eyes flashed with hurt and anger. "I'm Ridge Forrester's wife, not a footnote." She spun on her heel and fled, leaving him alone with the mute glass and his remorse. That night, Ridge found Taylor in the rose garden where they had first declared their love, kneeling by the fountain, tears glistening on her lashes. He approached slowly, guilt etched on his face. Taylor, please, he pleaded. Tell me how to make this right. She looked up, eyes burning with sorrow. There's only one way. Ridge held his breath. Anything. Taylor wiped her tears. Stop pretending our marriage's foundation can be borrowed from the past. Choose me, Ridge. No more ghosts. Ridge knelt beside her, taking the rose she had cradled. You're right. I've been living in yesterday. I'm sorry. I love you. She placed the rose in her hair, her silhouette bathed in moonlight. Prove it. Ridge pressed his lips to hers, a vow sealed in the quiet of night. But before the dawn could bring solace, a phone call shattered their fragile peace. It was Brooke. Ridge answered, hand trembling. On the other end, Brooke's voice was honeyed and triumphant. Ridge, she said slowly, each syllable loaded. I just closed a deal on your capsule collection. It's going global. Designers are calling. Buyers are calling. You and I were making history. Ridge closed his eyes, feeling the knife twist. Taylor watched from the doorway, her heart screaming as Ridge's shoulders straightened with pride. He smiled at the phone. That's wonderful news, Brooke. Taylor stepped forward, chest heaving. Ridge, tell her to stop. Ridge's throat tightened. He looked at Taylor, torn between the woman who was the present and the ghost who was the past. Brooke sighed softly in the earpiece. I understand. Perhaps you need time to think. Ridge ended the call and faced Taylor. His confession hung between them, fragile and exposed. Taylor swallowed. Do you? Ridge's silence answered her. Under the same moonlit sky that had witnessed their vows, Taylor realized the brutal truth. Love alone could not mend a heart torn between two women. Ridge's fierce devotion to her ward with the magnetic pull of his history with Brooke. In that hush, Taylor chose herself. She turned away from Ridge, her heels clicking on the marble as she walked toward the mansion's front doors, each step a claim of self-worth. Ridge called her name, desperation in his voice, but she did not look back. Brooke, watching through the window from the rose garden's brick path, allowed herself a small, victorious smile as Taylor disappeared into the house. Ridge sank to his knees among the fallen petals, grief-stricken by the cost of his divided heart. Above them, the jasmine blossoms trembled in the night breeze as if mourning the fracture of a love that could not decide between its past and its future.